The film begins in a town where, for some time, many girls have been mysteriously disappearing. In this very town, a man enters a cafe and orders only a winter mint-flavored cheesecake to go. He then steps outside where his old van is parked. The man drives the van far from the town toward an isolated area. The cake he bought was meant specifically for a young girl currently seen being held captive. Her name is Grace. This confirms that the man is, in fact, the kidnapper. Grace refuses to eat the cake and insists on going back to her father. The kidnapper, staying calm, tells her that her father doesn't love her and isn't even trying hard enough to find her. While he is still forcing Grace to eat the cake, a police officer suddenly attacks him from behind. The officer turns Grace away so she doesn't see and kills the kidnapper. He then takes Grace with him in the kidnapper's van and drops her off right outside her house before leaving. Grace rings the doorbell, and her father, Edward, who had been asleep, wakes up and opens the door. Overjoyed at the sight of his daughter, he hugs her. Grace is extremely hungry, so Edward immediately gives her something to eat. Afterward, he calls Officer Maddie and informs her that Grace has returned home on her own. Maddie instructs him not to change Grace's clothes under any circumstances and to take her straight to the hospital. At the hospital, Grace undergoes a medical examination. Her clothes are collected as evidence. Fortunately, she is completely fine and hasn't suffered any physical harm. The next morning, the police question Grace about what really happened to her. Grace tells them that a police officer had rescued her. Hearing this shocks all the officers. Maddie immediately asks if the officer had dropped her off in his own car. Grace replies no. He brought her home in the kidnapper's van, and that van is still parked outside her house. Police rush to Grace's home and find the van outside, but it's empty. Tracing the number plate leads them to the owner's address. Upon reaching the location, they discover that the address belongs to the real kidnapper. His name is revealed to be Will Rave, and his dead body is lying inside the house. Maddie immediately calls Edward to inform him that the kidnapper's corpse has been found. Further investigation reveals that Will Rave had been married twice. His second wife had died during childbirth. Maddie instructs her officers to search the house and land for any graves. During the search, they uncover the grave of the kidnapper's wife, and horrifyingly, buried around her grave in a circular pattern are the bodies of 4 children. The town's wanted kidnapper had finally been identified, but the cop who rescued Grace was still a complete mystery. Maddie heads to the cafe where the kidnapper had bought the cake and tries to obtain the CCTV footage. She also calls Edward, telling him that they need to question Grace a little more about the cop. Edward is against the idea, but Maddie insists that it's necessary. Grace is brought to the police station, where she is shown photographs of all the officers from the area in hopes that she might recognize the one who saved her. But Grace doesn't identify anyone. Later, Maddie pulls Edward aside and explains that they need to take Grace to the cafe itself, because so far they have no information about this mysterious officer. Grace is taken to the cafe, but once again, she fails to recognize anyone there. Everyone begins to leave, disappointed. But just then, Grace notices an old photo hanging on the wall. She immediately points to it, saying that this is the cop who saved her. Maddie is stunned. It's Officer Jim. She quickly takes everyone outside. Edward asks Maddie who this Officer Jim is. Maddie explains to him that Jim had died in this very cafe a year ago. Grace must have seen someone who only looked like Jim. At exactly 2:35 a.m., the police station is suddenly bathed in a red light. All the CCTV monitors flicker, showing a strange video. The same van, its doors shutting on their own. Maddie follows the red lights down into the basement. Down there, every single screen is looping the same footage of the van. At that very moment, Grace sees Officer Jim sitting right in front of her. And in the police station, Maddie too sees the same man appear before her eyes. Terrified, Maddie rushes out, jumps into her car, and speeds away. Meanwhile, Grace runs to her father, trembling, telling him about Jim. She insists on sleeping beside him out of fear. Edward tucks her into bed and then goes to check her room himself. After searching around quietly, he suddenly senses a presence. The scene cuts. Morning arrives. Maddie wakes up inside her car, shaken, and immediately texts Edward that they need to meet. She is still disturbed by what she saw on the CCTV footage. When they meet, Maddie shows Edward the recording. Edward reveals that Grace also saw Jim last night in her room, and when he went there himself, he too felt an unknown presence, like a shadow lingering in the dark. Then the scene shifts to Naya. Her mother comes to pick her up from school but gets stuck in heavy traffic. A teacher offers to drop Nia home, but she refuses. Nia then calls her mother, who tells her to walk home instead. Nia starts walking alone, but on the way, a man begins following her. This man turns out to be the kidnapper, who quickly grabs Nia and takes her away. Panicked, Nia's mother rushes to the police and files a report. Maddie tries to calm her, suggesting Nia might have just walked off in anger, but her mother refuses. Nia had spoken to her normally and still had her phone, which was now mysteriously switched off. Since no one else knew about the phone, it meant either Nia turned it off herself or someone else did. Maddie still doesn't see it as a kidnapping, but Nia's mother insists it is, pointing out other missing girls in town. Maddie reassures her that the known abductor is already dead and usually targets fair-skinned girls, urging her to check with Nia's friends. By the next morning, however, Nia is still missing. CCTV shows a black van near Nia's school, raising suspicion. Maddie asks about Nia's father, but learns Lamar Thompson died 3 years ago from cancer. Maddie still doubts it's a kidnapping, while Nia's mother insists she's missing. Meanwhile, the man with the black van locks Nia in a room, threatening her to obey if she wants to survive. On the other side, Grace's mother, Kelly, has now returned. At that moment, Edward receives a call from Maddie, who tells him that another girl has gone missing, and they need to talk to Grace again. According to Edward, this isn't the right time since Grace's mother just came back home. Edward then explains to Grace that she should not mention Jim in front of her mother, and afterward, he leaves for work. Meanwhile, Nia's mother makes a public appeal for her daughter's return, while reporters question the police about the new kidnapper. During investigation, officials discover Nia's real surname is Davis. She is the daughter of Tyrell Davis, the man who shot and killed Jim in the cafe a year earlier. Her mother had lied about Nia's father, fearing the police wouldn't take the case seriously if they knew the truth. She pleads with Maddie not to reveal this to the press. On the other side, Grace's mother apologizes to Edward. She had run away with her boyfriend, abandoning Edward and Grace. During one of their parties, they took drugs, and her boyfriend died instantly because she was the one who put the pill in his mouth. Panicked, she didn't know what to do. That's when Jim appeared, gave her plane tickets, and told her to go back home. Edward comforts her, saying he is just glad that she finally returned. Meanwhile, the police chief scolds Maddie, demanding how they could have missed the details about Nia's father. When Maddie brings up Jim, the chief snaps at her, telling her to stop with the ghost nonsense. He gives Maddie only 7 days to solve the case, otherwise she will be transferred. Maddie then goes to the cafe and questions the owner, Mason, about the night Jim was killed. Mason explains that Jim had come into the cafe that evening and went to use the restroom. At that very moment, Tyrell Davis stormed inside to commit a robbery. He took the money and even snatched the cafe owner's ring. Jim saw everything from behind. Before Jim could make a move, Tyrell shot at him. Tyrell didn't even feel the need to escape quickly with the money. Instead, he taunted Jim, daring him to pick up his gun. Then he shot Jim in the face, killing him instantly. Mason tells Maddie that even after that night, he saw Jim again. At exactly 2:35, Jim appeared before him. According to Mason, Jim was tormented with guilt and grief because his wife, Olivia, never got to see his face one last time, since the gunshot had destroyed it completely. Mason also confesses that his cafe was on the verge of shutting down, but Jim had told him, "Take my hand and put my picture on this wall. Your cafe will thrive again." Mason says that right after following Jim's words, the cafe started running successfully once more. Maddie immediately goes to Edward and tells him everything. Edward says Mason wasn't lying. Then he admits that he too saw Jim that night. Jim had offered him a wish, saying he could ask for anything he wanted. Edward wished for his wife Kelly to return and become a good mother to Grace. Jim granted his wish, but in return, he took something from Edward, something Edward doesn't reveal to Maddie. Now Maddie also wants to meet Jim, hoping he can help her find Nia. Edward invites her home at 2:30 tonight to see if Jim wants to meet her. After this, Maddie meets with a priest and asks if ghosts are real. The priest tells her that he believes in God and also in the existence of ghosts. Maddie explains that a ghost saved a kidnapped girl, and now she wants its help. The priest warns her against it, saying such spirits are cursed. They are souls who disobeyed God's command to leave this world and remained trapped here instead. That night, Maddie arrives at Edward's house. Edward stays downstairs while sending Maddie upstairs alone, where she finally comes face to face with Jim. The next morning, Maddie goes to Nia's mother and asks for one of Nia's old photos. She tells her she knows where Nia is, but she needs that picture. Maddie then goes to a store, collects CCTV footage from the past 10 days, and hands it over to her partner Parker, telling him to check if a black van has passed by. Meanwhile, Maddie prepares herself and heads to the law enforcement center, where she meets Tyrell Davis. She tells him that Nia is missing and shows him a picture of Nia when she was younger, standing with him and Safia. Maddie asks her questions and then leaves. During this time, someone dials Nia's phone number and asks, "Is this Nia Thompson?" before suddenly hanging up. Right after that, Parker informs Maddie that a black van passes by the same spot every day at 10 o'clock. Maddie sends him the store's location, and Parker begins his search. Following the van's route, he arrives at an abandoned motel. There, he finds a burner phone inside a trash bag. Maddie tells him she's on her way to join him at the same place. Meanwhile, Terrell secretly pulls out a hidden knife from his cell. At the same time, the police raid the motel. Inside, they find Nia completely safe. She runs into her mother's arms. The police chief praises Maddie for her work, but the real mystery is still unsolved. That night, Tyrell commits suicide in his cell. Parker finds a document mentioning a meeting between Maddie and Tyrell, which makes him suspicious. Using an excuse, he takes Maddie's car keys and searches her vehicle. Inside, he discovers Nia's childhood photo with something written on the back. Parker then visits the store and asks the manager if Maddie ever told him who gave her the address, but the manager knows nothing. Parker invites Maddie to lunch. There, he tells her that while both girls have been found, the real kidnapper is still out there, and someone on the inside is helping them. Parker explains that he checked her GPS and saw that she had gone to the motel the day before as well. He asks who gave her that address. Maddie admits that on that night Jim appeared to her and gave her Nia's location. But in return, he made her promise something. She had to accept him. Maddie says she accepted Jim as her only ghost. After that, Edward gave Maddie the address. Now Maddie tells Parker that Jim is capable of anything. Parker shows her Nia's childhood photo and points to the note on the back, saying the handwriting is hers. Maddie then tells him the whole story. First, Jim had told Edward that if he wanted his wish granted, Jim would need something in return. He demanded that Tyrell Davis be killed. On Jim's orders, Edward kidnapped Tyrell's daughter, Nia. Following Jim's instructions, Maddie also took Nia's photo to Tyrell. On the back of that photo was a note saying that if Tyrell wanted Nia to live, he had to take his own life. The call that came to Nia's phone was actually from Tyrell, arranged by Maddie while Tyrell was in custody to make him comply. Parker says he has to report all of this to the authorities, but Maddie reminds him that Jim cured his stage 3 cancer. Parker doesn't believe it at first because he had never even told his wife about his cancer, and the reports are still lying in his car. Maddie tells him to get tested again the next day. The next day, Parker is tested, and the doctors tell him he has no cancer at all. His previous reports must have been wrong. After this, Parker also goes to Edward's house. He goes upstairs and meets Jim. Jim tells him the same thing. "Take my hand. Accept me as your only ghost."
As my only ghost. From this moment on. Hello, Steve. My soul belongs to you. My soul belongs to you.
It becomes clear that all of them have traded their souls to Jim. And with that, the story ends.
Your support helps us continue to bring thoughtful content straight to your screen. Secondly, if you want a recap of your favorite movie, let us know in the comments section.